Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to modify the #1 truck of the box motor. So to start out, got the car jacked up here and put on some blocks. So we can see now that the car is far above the kingpin. We're going to roll this truck assembly out. Got a couple of cables to disconnect. These are ground pickup wires. There's one here and there's one over there. Got to get those unhooked. The air line I've already unplugged from the cylinder, so that's ready to go. And I've also cut the old motor wires. So yeah, we'll get the ground wires unhooked and pull this guy out. Okay, got the truck out. Look at a few things here that are quite interesting. So I'm noticing that all the wheels on this are grooved. And I'm going to say that that is probably because for a long time this car only had one driven axle. And then it's, I want to say about 25 years ago, I added a second, I added a chain in here so that the other axle was driven. So it's probably from spinning the wheels, because this thing has never really had enough adhesion to operate properly. Hence the reason why we've powered the other truck. This wheel here, I just noticed, has a crack in it, which is really bad, but it's apparently been like that for a long time because it's welded on the underside, and it's also welded right here. So somebody knew about that a long time ago and just left it. But this is the motor arrangement. So the way this thing was, like 25 years ago, before I modified it to this arrangement, this differential, so here's the motor. You can kind of see right here, there used to be a brake that was on here once upon a time. That thing never really did work right. As you can see, the plate's warped, so that was part of the problem with that. But it's got a really heavy gear reduction in this differential. And the way this thing was made originally was they cut the axle and then they welded onto the shafts and just kind of used the differential as it was. When I first started coming out here, this car was down because the axle shaft had broken. And I looked at that and I said, well, that's just ridiculous to do it that way, so we're going to change it. And what I did was I took it apart and I blocked this shaft, or I locked it, and then put a sprocket, and there's a bearing over here on there, and then just a short piece of chain to the axle. And then I added the second chain, and this one actually, this is a little tensioner that I made because this chain is pretty long that goes between the two axles. So that was the mod that was done so many years ago. Looking at what I did here, I totally forgot that I did this. So it's kind of hard to see in the video. Maybe we can see it better on this one. So what I did was I apparently was brave enough to get the wheels off of the shaft, and then when I put them back on, I basically used a lock collar here, welded some arms onto it, and then bolted the arms to the spokes of the wheels. Looking at this now, I'm like, why did I ever do that? But that was a long time ago. Apparently I hadn't thought of splitting the axles and welding them onto the shaft, or I thought that was a bad idea at the time, who knows. But in any case, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this out and we're going to replace it with the AC motor, and then we'll have to drive this sprocket This uses 60 chain. The other one I got 50 chain on. This is way overkill. Even the 50 is technically way overkill. But yeah, we'll change it so that we'll get the same gear ratio, truck to truck. And then we'll keep our fingers crossed that our wheels continue to have some service life in them. Because if I go to change the wheels on this, I'm gonna have to change them on the other truck too. There's no way around it because these are oddball 11-inch wheel, whereas everything else I have is a 10. And especially with us having an AC motor now that are fed from the same VFD, it's very important that all the wheel sizes are going to be the same. So I absolutely can't go having a 10-inch and 11-inch wheels intermixed. So yeah, we'll load this thing up, take it back to the shop at the house, and tear it all down and get to work. Got this thing back at the home shop now, and when I was loading this thing onto the trailer to bring it back, I noticed something really strange. I don't know if you can tell in this video, but this wheel looks like it's crooked, right? And I thought, man, how can that be working like that? Got to looking a little closer and found out that it's actually what's going on here is this axle is welded into the sprocket, and that weld is broken. So we actually have a broken axle here. And this thing was just flopping around as I was pushing it on the trailer. And man, I can't believe we just took a couple rides with this thing and didn't even notice that. And also, you can see just how rigged up this thing is. I mean, we've got two different size shafts welded together, and then we've got the cracked wheel over there. So our only option at this point is to change the wheels, as if there wasn't enough reason before with that crack and these grooves and everything. Yeah, they got to go. So I also noticed too, we've got a crack in here somewhere. Maybe you can't see it in the video, but there is a crack in the spoke. It's there. Maybe we can see it down in there now. It's completely cracked, and that's not the only one that's like this. So I've done some research and found some sprockets that are pretty close to change the gear ratio on this, so we can have the 10-inch wheels here and the 11-inch wheels on the other truck, and the motors will still turn the same speed. I'll just be changing the gear ratio on this one slightly to match the other one, and hopefully that'll be okay. So first step here is to get this motor and differential assembly out. And that'll reduce the weight a little bit, and then we'll flip this thing upside down and get the wheels out. So, yep, can never be easy, can it? It's always got to be something in the way. We'll get there. Before I started totally stripping this thing down, I thought, well, let's throw one of these new axles in here and just see how it looks. And, well, we have another new problem here to deal with. So these axles have a hub on them. It's part of the casting there. The old wheels, as you can see, were kind of hollow in the middle, and these have this hub, which means that this truck is going to have to be widened because this needs to fit down inside here where the bearing goes. So gonna have to cut here, and we'll space this out, probably go about 1.25 inches or so, give myself plenty of room. Just another thing to deal with here. I expected this was going to be the easy modification because, you know, it already had a motor, it had sprockets and everything. We just needed to fit this motor in place of the old one, but well, we'll get there. Just more work than what I wanted to have to do. Well, not much left of that. So here we're down to the bare frame, more or less. Here is what was removed. Sawzall got that out in about 10 minutes. Makes life easy. So now we're going to make our cuts here on both sides, and then we can split this truck open and weld it back together. Cuts have been made and we're put back together here with using every C-clamp that I have. So I put an 1.5 inch gap in here. I've double checked. The wheels fit in here great now. Plenty of extra room. So I've put angle iron on both sides of the tube. I got a piece of flat stock down here. Everything is good and square on both ends here. So I've got the welder here. We're ready to do a bunch of burning, make this change permanent. All welded back together now on both ends. So the next step is we'll get the axles back in there, start figuring out how we're going to lay everything in here. All right, went to get my axle put in now that we've got the truck widened up, and ran into another little problem here that was sort of unforeseen. So initially I thought that the axle sizes between the new wheels, which are right here, and the old wheel, which is one of these guys, I thought they were the same size. They looked very similar. However, the old one is 1.5 inches and the new one is 1 5/16 inches, which means that I had to replace the bearings. And just so happens that these bearing blocks, these were the original bearing blocks, these cover from like 1 to 1.5 inches, and then these are like 1 5/16 inches to 2 inch. So here's the new bearing. So it's significantly bigger, even though the shaft size is only, just a 1/16 larger than the old one. We had to jump quite a bit on our bearing size, so we're kind of stuck with that. That in itself created a couple more problems. Obviously this bearing block is wider as well, so now our springs that used to sit right here, now we wouldn't have the slide for our chain tension. So I'm going to have to move the springs over like that so that we have enough room here to slide. I've got to re-drill just one hole here, and then these arms used to come down to where they were basically straight when the spring was fully compressed, and then it would hit on the top of the block like that. Well, of course, this new one is taller, so we have less compression, and it's not gonna go all the way to where this is straight across. I thought about, maybe cutting these off and moving this down and making it all square again, and I've come to the conclusion that that is not worth the effort, since this is kind of covered up with the makeshift looking side frame anyways. Never really see it. So we're just going to have these arms, sit down a little more. I'm going to have to put a spacer here in my spring so that we have the travel to make up for the bad spots in the track. So yeah, that's just another little setback in this project. So we're gonna work on re-drilling these things and getting these bearing blocks put in and getting everything redone to where it'll work with these new bearings. Got the bearing blocks, or the mounting holes for the bearing blocks re-drilled. Got it mounted in here now. We've got our slots, so we've got plenty of slide adjustment there with our tensioner, so we can tension the chain. And the spring mount, I had to modify that a bit. So the original design on these, go down here to the one that I haven't done yet, there's a piece of 1/4-inch threaded rod that goes all the way up through there, and that is a spring keeper, and it also doubles as a way to keep this arm from coming out. So for instance, if we have a derailment and I need to lift the truck up, this keeps the wheels from falling out of the truck, basically. So with this, because I had to move the spring over, it was just easier to, I'll show you on this one because I haven't modified, or I haven't put the bottom keeper on. But basically I just welded a bolt on there, and I got something for the spring to sit on. It's just happens to be the right size that is captivated in there, and then the bearing block base keeps it from coming out. So that worked out quite well, made it easy. The only thing I needed to do then was to have something to keep it from coming out. So for that, I've added a small piece of flat stock right here, just something I had in my junk box. Bolted that on so it's removable, so when I do need to pull this out and lift these out for whatever reason, I can still do that. But as you can see, it just hits right there, keeps it from going so far, and we've got plenty of travel here for our wheel. So this should be enough movement to take up any unevenness in the track. So we're gonna modify the other end down here, get it looking like this, and then we'll be ready to install the axles finally. Got our spring mounts fixed up here on the other side and the keepers installed, both sides, and we have axles. So time to set this down, see how it looks on the ground. Here we have it on the ground, and it rolls. It's good. You can tell right now I'm gonna need to put some spacers under the springs because I can push this down with my hand. That's just not enough. So I'll add some washers under there on all the corners. So yeah, this is what it looks like now. It's the spring arms aren't quite straight like they used to be, but I think it'll work just fine. Got this down on the ground and was spinning these axles. This one here, pretty good. Just got a very small bend in it, not bad. This one though, this one has about 1/8 of an inch. I don't know if it'll show up in the video, but kind of see it wobbling if you line it up with my floor there. Got a pretty good bend in it, so we're gonna try to straighten that out. Show you guys my very crude yet functional process for straightening axles. So we've got our standard press here, and I've got this jig that I made that holds the axles, holds it on either end, and I clamp it down to the press, and then I put another piece of C-channel on here to hold my dial indicator. So the dial indicator is up against the axle there. And you can see as I turn this, you can see that each revolution is 100 thousandths. So there was 100 thousandths, and that is right there. It's about 130, 140, something like that. It's out pretty good. So anyways, we find the spot that is the highest area, which is right about right there. And then I'll put a block of wood here between the arbor and the axle, and then we'll crank on our jack here and push that down, try to get it about halfway, and then we'll rotate it and make other adjustments as needed. So yep, it's a little crude, but like everything else we do, it works. All right, so after several bends here, I was able to get this down to within about 30, 35 thousandths, thereabouts. Way better than what it was. So I think we're going to put this back in and see how it looks. Got our axle reinstalled here. We'll spin that around. Oh man, look at that. So much better. Yep, I think it's better than that one now. I'm not going to mess with that one. It's within probably 40, 50 thousandths. I'm not too worried about it. Here's a shot of the jig in the press without the axle on it. So next step is we're going to flip this truck over and start putting everything on the top side of it and get ready to put the motor in it. So I think we're gonna wrap this video up for now. I think it's getting pretty long. Had not anticipated to find all of these issues with this truck. So basically the next video will pick up starting where I thought I was going to start when I brought this back, and that's just putting everything on it to make it with the AC motor. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for part 2.